Okay. Let's talk about the the initial decision to put the mail-in ballot drop box out. Obviously, there was only one, right? There's only one ever in Lancaster County, correct? Just the one here at the building.
That's correct.
What led you to put it out in the first place? And then, since you had concerns initially, and then what led you to say, well, we want to take that away?
So back in 2020, as you know, with the pandemic being what it was and not knowing what was going to happen next with shutdowns and orders with respect to how we are to go about our daily lives and business, our elections director at that time said, or they'd like to have a drop box here at the building. It was never an idea to put drop boxes all around. The idea is here's the Board of Elections on the first floor. Let's have a place, a secure place, where people can drop their ballot off as a matter of convenience for people who are concerned about going to the poll or being in a group of other people because of the pandemic at the time and being concerned about the idea of voting and how that would happen. And also for staff, because there were, remember, tens of thousands at that time. We're talking for the general election, for instance, there were 90,000 mail ballots that were 100,000 requested, 90,000 came in. So the election director came in and said, I'd like to put a drop box in. And my idea is to put it, like Commissioner Parsons said, right there by the sheriff's station so the sheriffs can watch it. And then there's cameras on it. So we thought, okay. We never actually took a vote on that because it was an administrative matter as far as we're concerned. We were in agreement that as long as what you're saying is the case, we could see that happen at least for that time period. Excuse me. Well, fast forward to now, we don't have to worry about any of those issues anymore that were of a concern back then. On top of that, as Commissioner Parsons said, you had the governor sort of signaling that this is okay, which is a huge integrity issue. We can get into that a little bit more if you want. But another thing that happened is we're getting more and more short-staffed, and the idea of having our sheriffs having an extra eye on that box, given the other duties, and our staff at the Board of Elections have other duties, to have someone there constantly in a drop box when the office is really literally 30 yards away, with that person who's keeping an eye on people coming in to drop the ballot off is doing other work. We just don't simply have enough staff to watch a drop box that somebody drops something off every few minutes, whatever. So from all those perspectives, it was brought up by our elections director recently, the idea of that we still need the drop box. And we all weighed in, and two of us said, no, it's not necessary anymore. And, go ahead and take it away.
When did that happen? You took it away the first time? Because we'll talk about the ACLU.
Well, it never went out this time. It never went out this election cycle.
Okay.
So that's important to know. But never, in this election cycle, it was never put out.
We had talked about it at a couple of different Board of Elections meetings. We had talked about it just in a general way. And then actually, one meeting, the public raised the issue, and we answered the public and basically said, okay, Board, where are you on this issue? And then, so it was never actually brought out this election cycle.
So it wasn't out on the morning of May 16th?
That's correct.
Okay. Because I read somewhere that said it was removed.
Now, there's a little confusion on that because it seemed like the judge was restoring the status quo. In our view, the status quo was, it wasn't out, so the status quo was it's not being out.
Okay. So it didn't come out at all this election season?
Only until the preliminary injunction happened. We had to put it out. The preliminary ruling came down on Friday, and so we were required to comply with the order to put it out.
Okay.
We already had, this is another issue, we already had scheduled a Board of Elections meeting for Monday. That's scheduled every year. We have to have a Board of Elections meeting before the primary, the Monday before the primary. So we'd already advertised that meeting back in December of the previous year. So
Okay.
it wasn't like we just come up with a meeting to have a meeting to deal with the Dropbox. We had a meeting scheduled.
Sure.
The order came down. We were able to put the matter on the agenda for that upcoming meeting.
So I just want to make sure I understand. Just bear with me here. So you didn't put out the Dropbox leading up to the primary election, but then when the injunction came down from the court, you did put it out there, and it was physically out there in the county building.
Correct.
And then when was it removed?
As soon as we had the meeting and voted on it.
Okay. So about how long was it out there?
Basically, part of Friday and then Saturday and Sunday. I think we had some hours
On Saturday.
that had already been planned on Saturday for people to be able to drop off their ballots. And the other piece is, so even before Act 77, if you had an absentee ballot, you could come into the County Board of Elections and turn in your ballot instead of mailing it in. You could either mail it in or come in. And so that hasn't really changed, other than the amount of ballots is much, much greater than it used to be.
Okay. So you made the decision to not put it out there. Then let's talk a little bit about that lawsuit. I know you can't go into great detail, but what happened with that? The ACLU was involved in a lawsuit against the commissioners saying, hey, you need to put this Dropbox out, basically. Is that correct?
So they filed a suit saying we did not do it properly, basically, to making a decision, because we disagree with that. I've been involved in local government for nearly 30 years. And this is an administrative matter. An administrative matter is how you go about doing something. A legislative matter is what you do. The what has already been determined. You're supposed to drop off your ballot, your mail-in ballot, absentee ballot at the Board of Elections. How you do that is administrative, has always been. So we have a disagreement with how the judge ruled on this. Now, it's a preliminary ruling. Why is that important? So I think we were served with it on Tuesday that week, if I'm not mistaken, right? And by Thursday, you're having a preliminary hearing or injunction. He's the lawyer, not me. So you might have to ask him a little bit procedurally. My point is this. There's not a whole lot of time to get information put together and witnesses and testimony and documentation. There was a hearing held to determine whether or not to have a preliminary injunction. That's different than a full hearing. But we are able to cure the issue and move on. It's important because this isn't necessarily precedent setting as far as I'm concerned. It's a specific issue, a specific time, and we dealt with it, and we're going to move on.
One more thing about that lawsuit. I mean, if I'm understanding it correctly, it seems interesting that they're bringing this. The lawsuit is brought saying you made the decision not to bring it back out, correct? Like you had done it previous elections. It wasn't out this year. You just decided not to bring it back out, and that to me seems strange that there's a lawsuit saying. I know it's going into the details, but it's almost saying you should be forced to bring it back out. I know the lawsuit was focused on how you made that decision, but doesn't it seem a little strange that you would be, when counties do it differently? Some counties have a lot of drop boxes, some have less. Is there one other county that doesn't have any drop boxes?
Yeah, there are some. I mean, there's 67 counties across Pennsylvania, so you have a wide variety. You have some of the large counties in the southeast have many, many drop boxes all over the county. You have some counties that don't have any. You have some like ours that had, one or two in a county government building. But, I agree with you. But, the way our system works is the court rules on something and you obey that rule and you respect the court unless and until it's overruled by something else.
So the court did that preliminary injunction, then the May 16th you had the vote and the drop box was removed. So let's talk a little bit about that, and you touched on it. The concerns that were voiced by the public from both sides. People are saying, well, you are leading to disenfranchisement, you're preventing people from being able to vote, this is potentially, allegedly could be targeted certain communities of people that depend on this drop box. And I know you've spoken to this already, but maybe just again, what is your main issue with this and why remove the drop box. I know you've touched on it a little bit. Let's go back to what you've mentioned with the integrity, the perception, the law, Governor Wolf, the example that he set, and how you'd respond to people who say, hey, you're taking away people's ability to vote.
No one's being disenfranchised. No one is being told you can't vote or not having the opportunity to vote. Like we said before, you can vote in person, and if you can't vote in person, you can get a mail-in ballot, an absentee ballot. You have the option to bring it in to the building as it has been done previously. And if you can't do that, you can file a form so you can have somebody else bring it in. Look, convenience for the sake of integrity is not good for our election system. There's a reason why people are starting to be concerned about elections. And it has to do with this issue of integrity. We've talked about this before. We have internal controls for our financial system, right? There's a reason why you have those internal controls, making sure that, for instance, there's more than one person doing certain transactions. There's always eyes on. There's always a way to document things. We should have no less in our election system. We had that before. With Act 77, the way it's being played out, there is not that level of internal controls potentially in other counties. Here in Lancaster County, I can tell you there is, because after Act 77 in 2020, we literally sat down with the staff and went through and asked, there were questions asked. Well, what if this happens? Well, how do we deal with this? So we can have a system that people in Lancaster County can have faith in. That was literally talked about and dealt with. I can't account for other counties. I'm sure some other counties did. But then you had the situation of the Department of State at the time, the governor, the Supreme Court making decisions that, were not in keeping with the law and could give question as to the integrity of things. You had counties doing different things. That's not equal justice in the law. That's not equal application of the law. That's what really raises issues. These things are not in our control. These are things that are in control of others. And they have to understand that this is why some people are starting to have concerns about the integrity of the election system, because we need to talk about that. Some people want to sweep it under the rug. That's not going to help. That's why we're saying reset. First of all, it's unconstitutional. Read this Commonwealth Court decision. It's excellently done. Actually cites a case right out of here in Lancaster City, where it overturned the decision, as unpopular as it may have been, overturned an election result because of the Supreme Court saying what you're trying to do is not within the Constitution. As laudable as it may be that you're trying to do, you need to amend the Constitution and then put the law in place. These things give confidence in our election system by doing it the right way.